Is this healing work really worth it? Especially when it feels as if it will never end. You know, sometimes when we're on this healing journey, we start to question, what's in it for me? It's like we're wired to expect a clear exchange. Like, I put in the effort, I get something back. So you might catch yourself thinking, if I do all this, what is the payoff? And why haven't I seen it yet? Well, of course, that can be pretty frustrating and honestly pretty exhausting, especially if you do that song and dance. So stay tuned. I would like to offer you a powerful reframe. Welcome to my channel. My name is Francis. I believe when we defy the resistance and face our fears, we can create wildly beautiful lives. So my goal in these videos is really to inspire you to rise above the self-doubt, to conquer your fears, and to embrace a life full of limitless possibilities, free from judgment, with full clarity. So if this message is resonating with you as you watch it, consider supporting this channel by just hitting the like button and of course by subscribing. Also, before we get into it, don't miss the chance to check out my 125 self-reflection questions that will change your life. It's completely free and it's designed to help you dive a little bit deeper into yourself. All right, let's get started. So I had asked earlier, is this healing journey really worth it? And some of you might expect me to just say, hell yeah, it's worth it. Let's go, let's do this. But I'm actually reluctant to say that only because this path can't be easily quantified or measured in terms of worthiness. There's this desire to look at this journey through a transactional lens. And you know where that comes from. That comes from the matrix programming. Our society and surrounding influences have conditioned us to think in terms of input and output, where for you to invest your time and your effort into something, and that something actually is you, we should expect some sort of tangible and equivalent return. You know, it's kind of like a job, for instance. So you work for a certain number of hours and you receive a check in return. But here's the thing, the healing journey doesn't conform to this conventional measure of worthiness or even sort of this linear perspective. This journey and all of the healing that you have done and will continue to do is a deeply personal and transformative process, so that the value can't really be solely measured or even assessed in terms of what we gain materially or immediately. You know, the whole instant gratification thing. So I'd like for you to remember this as you navigate various stages of awareness or consciousness. And when I mention different levels of consciousness, I'm simply referring to the idea that every time you acquire new knowledge, you undergo a transformation. Only if you take that knowledge and turn it into wisdom. And through this heightened sense of awareness, you might start questioning whether everything you've gone through or are going through is actually worth it. Because you find yourself, you're opening up in various ways, becoming more vulnerable, and yet you still feel a lot of pain, reluctance, and maybe you're just sort of second guessing yourself as you move on this path, because it just, like I said, it feels like it doesn't end. For example, you get the courage to be completely honest about something with the person that you love, and you share this truth, expecting some sort of like warm embrace, a reward, a golden star, a cookie. But unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way that you expected, which is really just the ego, right? And you're like, listen, I apologize. I said, I'm sorry. Why aren't things better? It might even make things as you perceive it worse. And so there might be moments when this path appears to exasperate things, even though you've heard this saying that sometimes things get worse before they get better. However, the reason why it might seem like things are sort of just unraveling despite your commitment to self-discovery and the healing journey and all those beautiful things is because you're getting closer to the truth. When we move closer to the truth, a dismantling happens. So this isn't about making the external world better. Instead, it's just about your soul growth. And I talk about this in one of my videos that says, stop trying to save the world. In essence, what I'm really just trying to say is that when you do things to evolve your soul, It won't always be pleasant, but it will always set you free. But there are many of us who continue to resist and fight against this journey. And some of this resistance happens on a subconscious level, while for others, it's really a conscious choice. So it's not really a matter of whether this path is worth it or the fact that it feels endless. What it fundamentally boils down to is that this whole journey that you're on is actually just an inevitable process of the unraveling, of the unfolding of who you are. So let me explain. Regardless of whether or not you choose to confront everything that has been presented to you on this path now or later, it is your choice. It's your free will to do so or not. You can embrace that resistance or you can reject it. And here's the reframe that I'm getting to. What has been forgotten by many of you beautiful souls, even for myself, is that you are a part of Source Creator, an extension of that force. And as a result of that understanding, you then realize that the mission, this whole journey, is a journey to come home to yourself. And this is why this journey is inevitable. It might take you a bunch of lifetimes as you work through your own karmic stuff, but you'll end up there eventually. So when it feels endless, in a sense, it means that you haven't come home yet. And coming home basically means rediscovering your true self. It's those moments when life throws stuff at you that's meant to show you the gap between your adopted self and your original self. So this constant internal and external conflict that you might be experiencing at this moment, and then questioning whether or not it's worth it, has one common denominator, and that's fear. People have a lot of names for it. Some will say that I lack confidence, but that's just fear. Others will say that I'm constantly self-sabotaging my life. It's just another word for fear. And even a lot more will question their purpose. They're asking, what am I here to do? And again, I will say that this is fear, which creates a lack of clarity. Because what I find when I actually have these conversations with my clients is that they already know what they must pursue. The question is, do you have the courage to pursue it? And then others will say, I don't want to do this because I don't want to get hurt anymore. Again, that's just a code word for fear. My partner and I are experiencing a bit of a challenge in our relationship. And I realize the more direct and honest that I am about how I'm feeling and experiencing this life with her, the messier it feels inside of me. Because I'm both trying to maintain an internal and external illusion. And I say this to say that we sometimes want to avoid the internal mess because it feels so uncomfortable, thinking if we avoid the internal mess, then the external world will remain intact. But of course, we know that's a false illusion. So the discomfort in that internal mess that you're actually feeling is the path. The pain you feel from fear, it's actually the path that is going to lead you back to yourself. And so typically through this process and this journey, everything on the inside and outside must come crashing down. Metaphorically speaking, of course, but it all must dismantle to be reborn and rebuilt again. So coming home to yourself does not mean that you come home to a house that is under strict lock and key. Coming home to yourself means that there are no locks, there are no doors, and there are absolutely no keys. Coming home to yourself means coming home to a place where there are no barriers, no resistance, no fear, just the natural order of things. In essence, coming home to yourself is like finding that wide open space within you where fear loses its grip. I know a lot of you have been on this journey for quite a while now, and I commend you for it. And I acknowledge your resilience and your strength in this process. And it might feel like you're not getting the results that you've been longing for or the feelings that you are hoping to feel. And I encourage you to sit with those feelings while also recognizing that this is the path. Let's talk about feelings for a second, because I think it's important in this context. I'm referring to those emotional states where we often chase like the happiness, the contentment, or even the peace or the balance in our lives. And we're chasing those feelings. And these feelings can be that lit candle in a very dark place. They're really what we believe will make our life more meaningful, manageable, and enjoyable. So I don't want to devalue that experience. But there is a caveat. There's always a bit of a caveat, right? The caveat is how the pursuit of those feelings can actually cause more confusion and chaos, especially if we're not very clear on the desires underneath those exact feelings. So our desire to feel better, to experience more positive emotions can sometimes lead us off of the path, because it's like we become so fixated on pursuing the feelings that our judgment often becomes clouded. And so we might make choices or decisions from that place in the hopes that they will bring us closer to those desired emotions. But those very choices can actually put us in situations that leave us feeling even worse than before, because then we might misinterpret what truly brings us joy or peace. So we might pursue this short-term gratification thinking it will lead to long-term contentment, only to find ourselves further from our original selves. To truly understand what's behind what we are feeling, we must go below the surface and dig deeper into the layers of our emotions. And we'll know when we need to go deeper when we notice that we're stuck in repetitive cycles and patterns. By getting deeper with these emotions and this path that we're on, we begin to uncover the true nature of who we are. So this healing journey, I'll tell you, man, it requires different footsteps. The path is demanding, because it's asking for all of you, not just pieces. And so courage is the name of the game here. See, when you choose this path, you choose discomfort over comfort, and you're willing to feel a bit exposed. You're brave enough to take the risks and challenge what you've always thought, and be willing to venture into uncertainty. And so on this path, you might have more questions than actual answers, but still continue to question everything while also understanding that not everything will have an answer. And that's okay. But this path is only for those who've got the guts to walk it with all of they've got. You know, if you're watching this video, then that must be you, because those who consciously choose this path and commit to it will free themselves from the constraints and chaos of the programming. So let's revisit my initial question. Is this path truly worth it? Especially how endless it can feel. Well, I'm going to flip that question to you. Do you think this path is worth it? How valuable is it for you to lead the most authentic life that you can possibly live? Whenever you're faced with doubts, hesitations, or fears, that's really the question you need to ask yourself. It's not just about letting go or confronting your fears. It goes way more deeper than that, because you're on this journey to return to your original self. So the real question is, can I be true to myself in every aspect of my life? And what does it take to consistently do that from a very natural place, day in and day out? And so the journey becomes more about you creating the space and embracing the opportunities, and making the connections within yourself that's needed to make that a reality, to make that happen for you. So let's reframe this process from endless to expansion, just expanding over time. How beautiful is that opportunity? Because really, not a lot of people get the call to do this. Not a lot of people are awakened to the idea of something deeper within themselves. So it's really a blessing. Some people call it an existential crisis. I'd call it the existential blessing. But that's all I have for you now. I thank you so much for just watching the video. I truly hope that this message has given you a little bit of encouragement to just keep trekking along this path, because really this is what you're here to do. Remember that. All right, folks, don't forget to join the Thrive newsletter, and I'll see you on the other side of wholeness. Take care.